Adonai ma'adam v'tehdaehu ben enosh v'hat chashvehu Adam lahevel dama yamav kitzehelover baboker yatsi.
I'm sitting in a wardrobe, not knowing what to do. I'm really scared, and my little sister is too. We're going on a train to a faraway land, but my mummy says it's all going to be grand.
Welcome Mr. Hackworth to Malal Primary School and especially to our P5 class. We're very glad that you came today. We would love you to tell us just something about yourself, how you came to live in Malile and how long you have lived in Malile.
My name's Bobby Hackworth and I was born in Malile in Seaview Avenue in Malile in 1928. My family moved to Donaghadee and I started school in Donaghadee, Shore Street School. I started there when I was only 3 years old, but then we moved back out to Malile again on the 1st of January 1936. And of course when I came out, went to the old Malile School down in the main street, which is now the Baptist Church. During the time I was at Malile School, there were 80 Jewish refugees came to Malile. About 15 of those children came to Malile School, and that is how I got to know the Jewish children and the Jewish people so well. I have lived in Malile ever since, and I'm now 76 years of age. Some of those children that went to school with me, they still keep in touch with me, and the friendships that we formed then still go on to this day.
To this remote disused farm on the beautiful Ars Peninsula came in 1939 hundreds of Jewish children who had escaped on the Kinder transports. How did you feel when you met the Jewish children for the first time?
We were puzzled with them because those children, they were really frightened. They had come through a horrible experience of being taken away from their parents, put on a train, put on a boat to England, then put on a train again and a boat again from England to Northern Ireland. Of course, most of them couldn't speak English. All we could say was hello, and they said the same, but we couldn't really have a conversation, and they must have felt absolutely lost.
My parents had emigrated already before to America. And so did my sister. She was in America, so I was the last one to stay in Europe.
Where did you get the idea to write about Malile?
That's a very good question, Daniel, because when I started writing about it, very few people, even here in County Down, even in Bangor and Malile, knew very little about what had happened during the Second World War. But I got the idea because I heard about it in Dublin. I heard that there were Jewish refugee children and that some of them lived in Northern Ireland, children who escaped from the Nazi terror. And I was very interested in the subject of the Holocaust and the dreadful things that happened in the Holocaust.
Did the Jewish children get treated harshly in school for not speaking English?
Oh, by no means. No. I mean, the master and the teacher, then they understood the difficulties that the children would have. So the headmaster, Mr. Palmer, he set a Jewish child with a local child, and he did that with the whole 15 children or so right round. And he told us if the children asked what you call that, we would say book. If you said that to them, say over a week, they would get the idea, and it was surprisingly how quick some of the children picked it up.
Today I want to show you the register from Malal Primary School. It says on the front that it's for all the boys who came to Malal Primary School between 1931 and 1949. Anyone see any names they recognise?
There's Robert Sugar.
Oh, and who's Robert Sugar, Nikita?
The person who was in the DVD this morning.
Any other names that we recognise from our project? Shannon?
There's Walter Harris. Isn't that the Bobby Hackworth's friend?
I think that was the name that Bobby told us, that's right. Well done, Shannon. And you see it says where they came from. Walter came from Dresden and Robert Sugar came from Vienna.
Then the Reverend Kilpatrick, the minister of the Presbyterian Church, he started running English classes, and there was a lady, Mrs. Leach, lived on the Ballywalter Road. She started English classes too.
Don't forget, English was a foreign language to us, whereas it's now my main language here.
Where am I? Where am I going? Why do they hate us? Why did they come? What is a concentration camp? Where am I going? Where is Ireland? Where is the farm? How many are dead? There are no answers to all my questions, which are going round in my head. Which language did the Jewish children speak, and what did it sound like?
Well, the Jewish children, they came from different parts of Europe. Some of them came from Austria, some from Czechoslovakia, some from Germany itself, and those areas, they spoke different languages.
So I spoke English, and then I speak French, and of course German.
We were on a learning curve as well as us teaching the Jewish children English. They explained to us what their word was for book or pen or pencil, so it was a two-way thing.
The farm, as it became known to the refugees, was close to Malal. The children arrived from Belfast in the summer of 1939. They found a few derelict barns and outbuildings and an old stone farmhouse known as Ballyrolly House. The night they arrived was remembered by them as one of howling winds and heavy rain.
This is Ballyrolly House. This was the only permanent building here when the Jews arrived here, and this building was used mostly as an administration building, as well as sleeping in the tents in the field until the wooden huts arrived. These 6 stables here were used as living accommodation. They used this as a cookhouse and the canteen. They did all their cooking in this building here, which you can see in the background is now used for sheep brought in to have their lambs.
How long did it take you to write the book?
The book took a long time. It took the longest of all the books that I've written. What took a lot of the time was the research, was trying to find out all the facts, because although it's historical fiction, like it's a story, it's based so closely on fact. I made sure that I had found out the truth about exactly what it was like to be a Jewish refugee child, what happened to them, what happened to their families. And I also had to find out about County Down, about Malal, about a farm. I didn't know much about farms, and not just a farm, but a farm in the 1940s. So I had to find out all those things, and about the Belfast Blitz, which is a very strong part of the story.
Who is your best Jewish friend in school?
He was a boy called Gert Jakubowicz. That's an easy name to remember, isn't it? Well, Gert was the boy that was sat in the desk beside me. I was to help him to learn English, and he was mad to learn English, so between doing your lessons he was asking, Bobby, what is this? Bobby, what is that?
Pencil.
He is still alive today. I had a letter from him last year. He's retired now, but he was a teacher in Liverpool Polytechnic College. So he did extra well for himself, and the English he learnt in Malal must have done him a whole lot of good.
Did the Jewish children eat differently from you?
During wartime, food was very severely rationed. Bread was rationed, butter was rationed, margarine was rationed, bacon was rationed, meat was rationed. So they had the same in their lunches with us. It was either usually jam or cheese, lettuce, cucumber, radish. The Jewish children mostly tried to use stuff that they were growing at the farm.
Gradually, conditions improved, the fields were cleared and vegetables and grain were planted. Ballyrolly House was cleared and cleaned, ready for the inhabitants. There was a recreation room with billiards and table tennis, offices and a small synagogue. Long wooden huts were built providing dorms and a few small bedrooms. Later, a large structure was built which includes a car buyer, a workshop and storage rooms.
After it was built, they called it Mondheim's Monument because a chap called Mondheim, he designed it and looked after the building of it. The very top floor was just used for storage, but the other two floors were used as workshops where they mended farm material. It's still standing, although it's the worse for wear now, but it is a monument now.
Did you ever visit the Malay farm?
I did visit the Malaya farm. I heard all about it, and I got in touch with some of the former refugees who were the children that we read about in the book, who are now in their 70s and 80s and living all over the world. But the important thing was the day I visited the farm. And Bobby Hackworth, who you know very well and you just saw, brought me round the farm, and the people that owned the farm invited me to tea, and we saw all the buildings. And somehow once I saw the farm, I really felt so involved in the story when I saw the actual place. It was great to see it, and the way you could walk down the road and sit on the sea wall and look at the sea like the refugee children did when they were on the farm.
Up to 80 people lived and worked on the farm at any one time. From the first arrivals in 1938 to its closure in 1948, well over 300 adults and children are believed to have passed through it.
In the distance yonder field, there's a little cinder block building. The refugees, they built that too. They had glass houses down there, and they were building this as a tool shed. Walter Corbson and a couple more lads, they were supposed to be working and building the brickwork in, but they were sitting playing cards when the boss, their boss, came and cut them on, and he kicked up a whole rout. But when he went away, Walter Corbson took some of the wet plaster, spread it on the wall, and he wrote a message on the wall. That was in 1941, and that message is still there to this day. Here in this very place, the builders played cards. They were supposed to be working. The boss came down, kicked up a row. Result, Mayor's team flew out. 15th of the 11th, 41, Walter Corbson.
How did you find out about the Jewish evacuation?
I was in Dublin one day talking to a member of the Jewish community who happened to mention that he used to go up to a farm in Northern Ireland, and he met Jewish refugee children there during the war when he was a young boy, very young boy. And then I mentioned it to my husband, who grew up in Dublin as well. He said, oh yes, I think there was a farm. And then I started going around and looking further, and one thing led to another, and that was how I first heard about it.
Several local people worked alongside the refugees, teaching them farming skills.
This magazine here is a Jewish magazine that is put out in America by Robert Sugar, one of the boys that was here. Also, there's photos here of Bertie Muckle. This was the local man that was employed here to train the refugees how to handle horses, harvest, plough, sow, and we have photos here of a lot of the boys that were here: Walter Lemberger, Robert Sugar, Harry Borgenacht, Walter Corbson, Gertrude Jakobowitz, Henry Hirsch, Max Wienberger, all boys that most of them went to Malay school with me.
Franz and Edith Kohner, refugees from Czechoslovakia, managed the farm, bought supplies and looked after the rationing.
Well, I wasn't officially in charge of handing out all the material they needed for cooking, but my husband was in charge of administration. He did the main work there, really.
By October 1940, the farm had 2 Clydesdale workhorses, 7 cows, 2,000 chickens, 16 acres of vegetables, and the rest in cereals.
There was everything. There were, we had chickens, all right, and there were cows. I don't remember sheep. I don't remember sheep.
Eventually there was a dairy where butter and cream were churned, a kosher kitchen, a shoeing room, laundry and a workshop where machinery was repaired. Did you want to be an author when you were a child?
I used to like writing. I used to make up stories. I was rather a shy child, and I know I'm chatting away to you now, but I used to be quite shy, and I used to love to kind of lose myself in writing stories. But I never thought that I would be able to grow up to be an author, to actually be able to write books that would be published. Only when I actually worked in a school library and I met young people, and I thought, well, maybe I could write for young people because I was interested in young people and teenagers. But I never thought when I was young that I'd ever actually write a book that would be printed and published.
The children also played football with the Malal people, usually on Saturday evenings. Were you on the football team that played against the Jewish children?
I was indeed. We played quite a lot of football matches against the Jewish children. We arranged matches every so often. I was on the team. Sometimes I played outside left, but mostly I was a goalkeeper. So if there was any goal scored past me, I got the blame for it. But we had quite a few matches, although sometimes the Jewish children had bother making up 11 players, and on one occasion I remember they got a girl to play. In the book Far Away Home, she was named as Grace, but that Grace was actually Florrie Kelly, who lived in Malile, and she was a super duper footballer, and she would have kicked you off the field. I would rather have played against 2 or 3 men players than play against Florrie, because when you came off the field after a match with Florrie, your legs were black and blue. If she couldn't get a kick at the ball, she took a kick at you. Bobby Hackett. Bobby Hackett, said Carl. He was friendly to me. On the first day, he showed me that he had 6 fingers in each hand, and I never forgot this. He grinned, and he's a good footballer too. He'll be playing against us in the next match.
Bobby! Bobby!
And would you like to show the boys and girls your 6 fingers? Look. Wow, and 6
toes.
He has as well.
And my son has them, and my grandson that was born just last year, he has them as well. It's what they call polydactyly, and there's 6 generations of us.
How do you
now.
have to wear football gloves?
Oh yeah, with 6 fingers in them. That's why they couldn't get the ball past me with hands like that.
I can have your hands. In the summer they went swimming at the Malal beach, played football, held concerts and dances.
Remember the people at the settlement, they gave concerts
Yes,
on a Sunday night.
my husband was quite a good violinist.
Very good. He generally played. He was part of the concerts that they gave for the Malaya people.
And you know, Mr. Solomon, they owned the shop with records, and Francie would borrow some of those records, and thus playing it educated us about music and about various concerts, etc.
They loved going to the cinema and walked the 3 miles to Donaghadee, where they were allowed free entry to the cinema.
Did you ever hear any bomber planes coming overhead?
Yes, during the Blitz of Belfast, 1941, those terrible nights wherein Belfast was so badly bombed, they came over here, went up, dropped some of their bombs, circled back round Malile again, and in the course of doing that, they dropped flares right round, and Malile was just like daylight, absolutely circled with flares. From Malile, we could actually see the sky, Belfast burning. The sky was just a mass of red flames, We could see that from Malyle, and Belfast is 20 miles from here.
Did they talk about their families in Austria or Germany?
Not a lot. Sometimes the fellow that I chummed with, my best friend that we talked about earlier, he would have said, well now, he and his sister were in the house when the German Gestapo came for them. They took their father and mother away, right away, and left Gert and Edith in the house on their own, even though there were only 2 children. Left them on their own, and it was an uncle that got them smuggled out on the kinder transport.
Me and the other Jewish children were sleeping in our beds. I heard someone in my dream, and me and the Jewish children bumped heads. My dad was sad, but I was glad. My mum said, yes, you have to go. To which country, I just don't know.
Did you hear any children crying?
Not a lot. Not the boys. Not the boys. Sometimes the younger girls would have, if they fell or anything, naturally they cried for their mammy. And unfortunately their mammy, no, their daddy wasn't here. What those children came through, they had every good reason to cry, but after they had been there for quite a while, it was very, very seldom you saw them in tears.
In the Belfast Synagogue, there is a plaque expressing the refugees' heartfelt thanks to the Belfast Jewish community for their wonderful help and support during World War II.
I think it was both the central organisation in London, which was dealing with saving as many people as they could from Europe. A famous rabbi, Rabbi Schoenfield, and others were helping with the kinder transport, right, bringing all the children over. And the local Jewish community was asked whether they would help to support, to take care of some children. So I think between the 2 organizations and others who helped out, the children were brought over to Malyle.
Do any of the Malyle Jewish refugees worship in the synagogue?
Not now, no. The few that are still living here are pretty old, and I would see them once in a while, but they wouldn't come.
Why were you not allowed to use the real names in the book?
That is a very interesting question, and nobody's ever asked me that. Generally speaking, if you're writing, if I was writing a history book, if this had been history of Malyle Farm, then I could certainly have used the names, and because it would have been just the facts. But because I made it a fiction story, because I wanted to put in people's feelings and their emotions and what Carl felt like being a refugee, and because I wanted more young people to read it, I made it a fiction book, but as I said before, very much based on the facts. If people are still alive and they might not necessarily want to see their names in a book with thoughts and feelings put in there that maybe they didn't have. So I didn't want to sort of upset anyone. Some people also, it was a very sad time of their lives in many ways because they'd left their families and they didn't know what was happening to them and they were having to make a new life. But there's one person whose name I didn't change, and that's Jacobi. Those of you that have read this story might remember that Jacobi was one of the helpers on the farm. He was a refugee, and he was like a sort of emotional rock. He was like a great helper to the children, to all the refugee children. And he died shortly after the war, and he obviously made a huge impression on everybody on the farm. And I just couldn't imagine him called anything but Jacobi, because that's what everybody called him. So I didn't change his name.
Most of the refugees remained at Malyle until the end of the war, and some even stayed until it finally closed in May 1948.
Do you have any contact with them now?
Yes, I am indeed. Still in contact with them to this very day. And in fact, I was down seeing one of them a couple of weeks ago, Edith Conner. She is now 93 and she lives at Newcastle in County Down.
Edith Bone, I'm in touch regularly. And then I try to be in touch with David Hurst. Heine, we used to call him on the farm. But he's an actor. and he has a brother or sister, I think, in Berlin, and went to join her.
Henry Hirsch, he is the person who was depicted as Carl in the book, and Edith Jakubowicz was the girl that was depicted as his sister Rosa. They both came to see me 4 or 5 years ago. They came, and it had been 50 years from we had last seen each other. Robert Sugar in New York, he still keeps in touch with me, writes and phones. Gert Jakubowicz, the boy who sat beside me in school, he still writes to me.
People here are very, very kind and very helpful, and we had made many friends, so it was the best place for us to stay.
Robert Sugar, he found his mother after the war, but that is the only one that I know of that actually found their parents now. Edith Koner, she lost 23 of her family connections in the Holocaust, just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Did your daughters like living on the farm?
They liked living, sweetheart, never mind where. You like living.